Hello, this is Sharon Birch, the founder of New Directions for Nurses and LiberatedNurse.com. We teach nurse coaches, consultants, and educators how to grow thriving businesses. Welcome to the Make Marketing Authentic, Ethical, and Effective event. I'd like to introduce today's guest, Yeshe Chodron. Through her coaching business, Synergy Healing Services, Yeshe helps achievement-driven women who want more sweetness in their lives. Yeshe consciously delved heart first into the realm of soul growth at age 15, and she now believes everyone can live a fulfilling life. On her journey, she has embraced multiple paths of inquiry, including holistic nursing and the shamanic arts. Yeshe is passionate about lovingly guiding people who identify as women through the many phases of soul growth. She's been a spiritual guide and personal transformation coach since 1998. Hi, Yeshe, welcome.
Thank you so much. Hello. So glad to be here.
You and I first met through mutual friends several years ago. I've lost track of how many. And then a few years later, you participated in my pilot test of the Liberated Nurse Business Incubator.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
Before you share your marketing tips with us, I'd like to help the audience get to know you. So where do you live and what do you like to do for fun?
So I live in Kansas, and that's smack dab in the middle of the US, in case anyone forgot their geography like I tend to do. Yeah. And there's so many things that I like to do for fun. And I have to say that my fun stuff and my work actually meld sometimes, because my fun stuff has to do with connecting with my spiritual community and doing things that really gratify my soul. And soul growth is what my business is all about. So some of those things are, being in nature and spending time with plants and doing vegan cooking and altering my consciousness, through meditation or through breathwork journeys and things like that. So
wonderful. I enjoy those things too.
Yeah.
That's part of our friendship. We have those in common.
Yeah, exactly.
So then, how do you define success for yourself?
I really love that question. I have to say that one of the things that defining success used to be such a huge struggle for me. And through my experience, in part working with you through your incubator course and through other experiences that I've had in my own business growth journey, I've come to realize that success really is simply having sustainable expansion. And another way that I like to say that is being rooted in our growth, being present and rooted in our growth and having a sense of freedom to enjoy the sweetness of life.
Wow, I love that.
Thank you. I love it too.
Yeah, clearly. I can see how it would inspire you toward more success.
Yeah.
So why did you start your business and when did you start it?
So I started my business officially in 1998, and really I started it because I had to, because in my soul, I could feel that not only were there things that I knew that could be done, like processes, practices, and tools that I could accumulate and utilize. I knew that there were things that I could do to reach that sense of fulfillment for myself. And miraculously, I knew this at an early age. I knew that things were missing out of my life that I wanted, and that there was a way to get there, And so I started my business because I knew that if I was feeling like I needed a way to get to where I wanted to be, then surely other people are feeling this way too. And I discovered that there were a lot of other people that were feeling that way and that do feel that way, no matter what stage of business they're in, whether it's the beginning stages of business or whether they're an expert. and when people aren't allowing themselves, or if they feel that they don't have the space somehow to enjoy the sweetness of life. And we recently talked about celebrating ourselves, right?
Yes.
So when we don't have the space to do that, I believe that, and this is my personal belief that has really served me throughout my life and through my business, but I believe that it's because there's something in our soul that either wants to grow, shift, or change. And when we allow ourselves to tend to that, and there's a lot of things that we can do that are really simple, and there's more complex things that we can do too. But when we allow ourselves to apply those practices, processes, and tools, I really believe that everything in our life changes. And I'll just mention really briefly that part of my history is that I've studied and practiced Tibetan Buddhism in multiple ways too. And when they talk about the turning of the wheel of Dharma, it's like you could imagine that yourself or your life is a wheel, and that, there's a center and that there's spokes coming out, right? And in order for one spoke in our life to make a massive turn, like maybe a 180 turn, when we go to the center, which I believe is the soul, we just turn it a little bit. We just turn that center a little bit, and that spoke goes around really far. So like a little shift for a big change, right?
That's a wonderful metaphor. I could see it, I could feel it, and it resonated with me in, different layers of my own life where I have been at the core or at the center in my soul and made a small shift, and then it made a profound shift on the things that are more outer to my soul. Just
gosh,
I love that wheel, and that's from Tibetan Buddhism.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's lovely.
It's one that I think about often. The wheel of Dharma.
Yeah. And how it's what you're saying is such a great reminder that when we work at our soul level, it's at the core. And so we're wanting, sometimes I know in business, it's easy for us to be chasing all these different tactics and strategies and all these things. And yet, if we can work closer to our core or at our core, we're going to be able to do so much more change more effectively with less effort too.
Yeah. Yes, that's absolutely right. And I have to say, one of my clients, just by working together for a short amount of time and allowing her to make some small shifts at that core level, like at the soul, she completely changed her relationship with her husband and her two sons. I mean, like completely, she went from, I know, and I'm not a relationship coach, but this is just one of the things that happens. We were focusing on her business, but it just so happened that by her making those core level changes and by following, some simple practices, processes, and tools of self-reflection, examination, lots of things that are very simple that we went through for her. And by making those small changes, she went from thinking that she was going to have to get a divorce and leave her husband to now they're having date nights every week and they're enjoying each other's company. They're talking a lot more often. Her son has opened a business and she's helping with that business. And there's like such a deeper interweaving. And all the while she's feeling much more feminine and she's feeling much more in her power. And that's just golden. It's golden.
It sure is. And when you put the words feminine and power together, do you want to say something about that? I was starting to go off on that, but I want to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that. That's something that I believe that every human, when we access our femininity, we're accessing something that we've not had the public freedom to stand in or to rest in or to be rooted in for centuries. And it's so vital that we allow ourselves to not only acknowledge that part of our humanness, but to allow that part of our humanness to have equal footing to the more dynamic parts of ourselves, the more yang oriented. If you think about yin and yang, yin is feminine, yang is masculine, and our society has been very yang focused for a long time.
Mhm.
Humanity itself has been very yang focused for a long time. So when we allow that equal footing, then there's a wholeness there, right? That we don't have when we don't allow the equal footing. So when we do allow it, that wholeness brings us into a place where we're stable, we're rooted, and it brings us to that rooted growth that I was talking about in my definition of success, right? So that we can actually allow our lives to flow and not experience the stops and starts that a lot of us have, especially when we're building a business or growing a business, that feast and famine that I was suffering from when I first started working with you.
Yeah.
You know, that can transform into consistency when we have 2 feet that are in motion in the flow, whether we think of the flow as walking or swimming, but using 2 feet, you know, in a metaphorical sense, can really be helpful and can really be the key to us not only accessing our power, but living from it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's so many things I want to ask.
Yeah.
So let me do it by this way. Can you share some of your tips
Mhm.
for nurses who want to make their marketing more authentic, effective, ethical, you know,
Mhm.
really bringing in the power of their femininity in balance with the yang or the masculine of
Mhm.
all that, and being a whole authentic person
Yes,
anywhere in, and that's a big realm, so you can
that's okay.
dive in wherever you want.
I'm excited to share. So
Okay.
I think one of the very early things that I do with all of my clients is to reorganize our attention into being present with our feelings and sensations. So feelings are emotions and sensations are the things that come up in our bodies. So we can do that at any moment. And a lot of times having a deep breath can allow us to access what are our emotions in this moment. What are the sensations that are happening in our body that might even be connected to those emotions? And when we do that, when we just take a moment and have a deep breath, and we could simply ask ourselves, what emotion is here now? Or even just what is here now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we allow that emotion to come forward and give it space, a lot of times let's say it's a challenging emotion like anger or sadness, and maybe we're at work and it's maybe not appropriate to show that anger or sadness, right? But we can take a moment for ourselves and say, you know what, I have some anger here now. And when we acknowledge it and give it space, we're much less likely to unconsciously act from it, right? Which we know can be dangerous. It can be dangerous to our relationships. It could damage relationships, and it can be dangerous to, if we're treating a person in the nursing realm, for example. If we're offering a treatment, we can be rushed and hurried, and that doesn't serve us, and it doesn't serve the people that we're serving. Yeah. So in being with the feelings, I feel like when we just, again, I know I'm repeating this, but I think it helps to hear it twice. When we're just allowing ourselves to say, you know what, there's anger here right now. I'm aware of that. And maybe I can't, get it out right now. Or maybe I can't allow it to complete its cycle in this moment, but I can certainly give it space, which gives the anger an opportunity to go further in its own cycle. And I'll just share as a background to that, I believe that emotions are cycles. They're messengers, but they also occur in cycles. And so when anger happens and we stop that anger by using a coping mechanism, not that coping mechanisms are bad because they can create, survival for us, but when we overuse a coping mechanism and we stop that anger from happening, that anger just kind of keeps pushing at the coping mechanism, and eventually it's going to push past it. And a lot of times it happens when we least want it to happen. And it's usually in an inappropriate way. So the best way to allow ourselves to not act out, for example, is to give anger or any challenging emotion a little bit more space in our awareness. So that way, maybe the anger isn't completing its cycle fully if we're not alone, but it's at least getting a chance to have a little bit more space because it wants to give you a message. So when we have a little bit of space, just by being with the feeling, we can receive the message and the wisdom of that challenging emotion. I know that I just said a lot.
Oh, well, that's okay. It's going to record. It's on a
Yeah.
recording so they can pause, they can hear it again.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And I recommend listening to that again because there's a lot in there. So yeah, being with the feeling is like my number one tip. And I think that, again, using the breath, our breath can allow us to be more present with the feeling and things like that. But I do want to add something else too, which is it's really important that we reflect on our beliefs, our belief systems, because oftentimes our society has, well, always our society has shaped us, whether it's within our home or outside of our home, we're shaped by society. And our society has been through a lot of challenging things over the last several centuries, right? And so since its inception, really. And so there's a lot of things in our history that we may not think of as being activated now, but they are. And so if we can reflect on our belief system and allow ourselves to truly acknowledge what our beliefs are, the good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between, all of it, right? Then we can start to make choices because then we recognize that we do have the freedom to choose. So we can make choices about where we want to land and focus our beliefs. A lot of times that takes hiring a mentor like you or me, or a coach, or some kind of professional support so that we can see what are my beliefs related to my business? What is the thing that's blocking my growth? You know, maybe I'll share a quick story. I have a client, a past client who at 65 years old, we did some soul growth deep diving and we discovered that one of the things that she was kind of bucking up against in terms of hitting the ceiling of her own growth in her business was that at probably around age 3 or 4, she was at the grocery store with her mother and at the counter and wanted a candy bar, and her mother said no. And it was the first time she'd experienced having a great need by being hungry and being told no. And that shaped her entire belief system. And this is really common. This happens to us all the time, and we're typically unconscious of it. So breath can help us to alter our consciousness. Meditation can help us to do that. But altering our consciousness, which is one of my favorite things to do, can really help us to access that reflection on our belief systems. And again, it's really helpful to have a mentor or a coach or a guide that we trust to help us with that reflection.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, we can do a lot with our mind and our consciousness ourselves, but we can do a lot more if we have a guide who can give us some, some direction, but also sometimes some tools and, and education, you know, all of it together can take us to the next level of our development.
Yeah, and how I think of that, and I just said this to a potential client the other day, how I think of that is, you know, it's like let's say we're friends traveling this path together. The only difference is I've been on this path multiple times before. Whereas if someone has only been down once or never, then I can say, hey, this is a place where, you know, we might want to stop for water, you know, because the road ahead for the next few miles is going to be a little bit difficult. Or, hey, this is a place where, you know, we can't see right away, but this path has, you know, some sharp edges that we want to avoid, or some sharp rocks, and we're going to need some different shoes, you know, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But we can help people to understand what's ahead and help them make choices of their own soul's desire based on what we know to be coming up.
Yeah. What a wonderful metaphor again. Yeshe, wonderful. And that's how I see my role as a guide and mentor for nurses in their businesses. It's the same
Yep.
thing, but I had never put that exact metaphor together, and I really
Yay.
like it. Yeah. So I understand that you have a gift for the audience. Is that,
I
you want to
do.
tell us a little bit about it?
I would love to. So I've been talking about breathing, and this is totally appropriate because the gift is called Sahu Rosa, and it's a womb-centric breathing practice to cultivate our personal power. And as we mentioned, when we have our personal power intact, the 2 feet, then we can really be rooted in our growth, which is my version of success, right? We can really succeed in life. So coming back to the gift, the breathing practice, Sahu Rosa, is really simple. It's a recording that I've prepared for the audience so that you can just turn on the recording and follow along. And it's super simple. I really recommend doing it multiple times daily if possible, but don't limit yourself. If you want to do it more than once a day, that's also great. There's so much to be said about what we can do with our minds, as you mentioned, when we access our breath in an intentional and mindful way. And, of course, again, like you said, that doesn't speak to how much further we can go with a guide, but there is a lot that we can access right in here when we have this access to a powerful and ancient focused breathing practice.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you for that gift
My
for the
pleasure.
audience. And everybody, you can get access to Yeshe's gift by just clicking the button below the video, and then you'll receive the recording by email after you sign in for it. So thank you, Yeshe. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Would you like to share how the listeners can contact you?
Yes. And this is, I'm really happy to offer this direct contact to me that I don't usually offer, but I'm going to offer my email, which is yeshe@synergyhealingservices.com. And Yeshe is YESHE. So it's yeshe@synergyhealingservices.com. And I will offer directly the opportunity to send me a text message to my personal phone. I know. I don't ever do that. Well, maybe not ever, but rarely do that. But I feel like this is so important. I really want people to be able to ask me questions about the breathing practice because it's going to be experienced differently for every person. And, if there's another way that I can be supportive in this journey of growing your business, I really want to be present for that. So to text message me, it's 785-979-0300. And please just let me know that you're texting me after watching my interview with Sharon, and I'm more than happy to, communicate with you that way.
Wonderful. That's just lovely. So generous. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I feel like you're generous. This is an amazing experience that we're having with all these experts. So thank you for your time and your effort and your focus and your expertise in putting this together. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been my joy. It's been so much fun.
Good.
So everybody, I invite you to put your comments in the comment box at the bottom of this page. And also any questions you have, I can route them to the speaker. Yeshe is the only one that gave her direct contact, so I'm happy to do that for her or others. And also, I'd love to hear your suggestions for topics that you'd like to have explored on future events like this one, or suggestions for other speakers that you'd like to, that you think would have something of value to share with nurse entrepreneurs. So that is it for this interview, except that, Yeshe, I want to see if you have any last ideas or thoughts that you'd like to share.
Yeah, I actually would love to share that it's really important that we be kind with ourselves along this journey. Whether you're at the beginning stages, which is, I would say, the hardest stage to face all of our challenges and our, challenging beliefs and all of those emotional upheavals that start to happen. But even if you're in further along and you've been doing business for a while and it's time to grow, still, I want to just remind us to be kind with ourselves because, it's hard work, communicating with people in a way that's loving, effective, and also gets your agenda accomplished is a complex experience, and we can do hard things. And it's helpful if we're kind with ourselves while we're doing those hard things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is. Thank you for sharing that encouragement
My
and
pleasure.
reminder,
Yeah.
we as nurses, we often encourage others to be kind to themselves, to not be critical, judgmental, and yet doing that for ourselves is a little more challenging. It's just sort of off our radar a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So everyone, you've been listening to Sharon Birch and Yeshe Chodron for the Make Marketing Authentic, Ethical, and Effective event. And remember, you can watch all of these videos through Sunday, September 18th, and then they'll come down. If you are enjoying these videos, please share them with your friends and colleagues by giving them the opt-in page so that they can get their own access and the emails that go with the series. So I'll just mention again that URL for your friends to opt in. It's liberated-nurse.com. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.